then the EIA, the Energy Information Agency, I think it is, estimates that the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, we use too many acronyms in this town, could make wind and solar account for nearly 60% of the U.S. electricity generation by 2050. Now, everybody's jumping down in joy in all the schools across America because they've been told wind and solar, it's the magic unicorn energy. Don't you understand? Everything is great. It's clean. It's wonderful. They don't ever talk about the side effects. They don't ever talk about the children that are mining all of the minerals to be used in the solar panels being abused around the world. They never talk about the environmental impact of the turbines, the wind turbines, West Texas, what happens to birds. They never talk about what it means to our national security and empowering China. They never talk about the fact that you can't have a grid that stays up and powers your homes and your hospitals and your lives because you don't have gas-fired plants, you don't have coal-fired plants, you don't have nuclear plants backing up the grid. Because I can tell you, on a cloudy, windless day in Texas, we in trouble. It's true. But everybody's going to go around on the other side of the aisle, and they go, and I've seen them, they go give speeches to kids on the steps of the Capitol. And they go, oh, we're doing all this great thing for you. Don't you know? We care about the environment. We care about our planet. You now have all of this great clean energy. Well, enjoy being in third world status with brownouts, like we're seeing in Europe, like we're seeing in other parts of the world, where they're retreating from the full embrace of so-called green, i.e. unreliable energy resources, because you create energy poverty. You undermine human flourishing. You undermine the well-being and the prosperity of the poorest of the poor in this world when you take away the ability for us to have energy, and that's exactly what my Democrat colleagues did, and in the process are enriching their fat cat friends. 90% of the subsidies go to corporations $1 billion and up. Oh, but I thought this was all the good stuff, the unicorn energy stuff. No. Rich people, financiers, making tons of money on the back of grift, of corporate cronyism. The worst kind of corporate cronyism you've ever seen on display happening right here. And what are Republicans doing? Running away. Saying, well, they'll never give up their signature Inflation Reduction Act bill. Bull. They'll give it up if we take it to them and hold the line for the American people. Stand up and hold the line, to my Republican colleagues, against the worst form of corporate cronyism I've ever seen on the floor of this body. How about the 80% of the electric vehicle subsidies that go to people who make $100,000 or $300,000 as a couple? Yeah. So the poor guy out there as a plumber trying to drive his pickup around is going to be told, you got to go subsidize the little suburbanite family running around in their EV feeling good about themselves, patting themselves on the back while they go plug their EV in to charge it using as much power as you use for your air conditioning unit, which has to come from somewhere. And that somewhere ain't nuclear, ain't gas, and ain't coal anymore because they're destroying our ability to produce the reliable power that we need for the very EVs they want to subsidize. And let's not even talk about how much that's empowering China. Directly, Chinese companies are eligible for these climate credits. A recent analysis found Chinese companies could end up with $125 billion in IRA subsidies. So you're giving them all the power, the Chinese Communist Party. You're subsidizing them with direct taxpayer money. You're allowing the Chinese to then sell us back the panels made with the minerals that they mine. How in the world is this good for our national security or our energy security? It's not. Democrats should be ashamed. Republicans should be ashamed if we walk away, which is what they're about to do. Cutting a deal that undermines the American people. Taking the very first off-ramp, the very first exit ramp.
Okay, right there, that is an impassioned speech in the House just moments ago. It is Thursday, 25 May in the year of our Lord 2023, and this is why it's so important to hold the line. The number's 202-225-3121. We need the war room to man the ramparts, as that whole part was about one small aspect. It's actually huge, but it's a small aspect of this fight that we've got right now. And that is about the energy, the Inflation Reduction Act. That's it's an obscene thing to put on there. It's really the Build Back Better, the Green New Deal with a little lipstick thrown on it. We're trying to unwind some of that, and that is Chip Roy, who put this letter out. If you go up on Getter, and if the crack staff maybe to get to Memphis, I actually put it up. Grace Chung helped me take Chip Roy's letter and kind of walk it down. I realized Dr. Navarro's with it. It's not perfect because he didn't explain a lot of stuff about the inflation, but he got to the interlinking parts of the deal that couldn't come out. And why he's saying hold the line in the war room has to have the back of Chip Roy and others is the buried lead. He says they're taking the first off ramp. They're taking the first off ramp. Peter, you've seen this in negotiations time and time again, that we put out something. It's not great. We wanted much more, but at least it's something. You get there, and the first time they come into any kind of tough negotiation, they literally crater. They kowtow to the Democrats, the controlled opposition Republicans. They take the very first off ramp, and we're giving things away. The numbers on this Navarro, 60. This is CNN's number. 60% of the American people only support any kind of increase to the debt ceiling or new borrowing by the United States with significant cut. Fox News came out. The number was 57%. Now, 63% said they don't want to default. None of us want to default. Okay, because we're not going to default. The default, and if I can get that chart, I don't know if Memphis have it, Denver did, but if we get Memphis to have it, I'll walk through the cash management in a second. Peter Navarro, there's so much there I want you to get into. What Chip is talking about, he's preaching the gospel according to Dave Walsh, right? Full spectrum energy dominance under Trump.
Yes.
Does that underpin? I mean, he had so many great themes, Peter, and particularly the fact that we're underwriting the Chinese Communist Party once again, sir?
All right, Steve, he's preaching, but my concern here is he's preaching primarily to the conservative MAGA choir. You know, he's saying the right things. It is absolutely true that Biden bill is a full employment act for Beijing, Shanghai, the electric vehicle mart, and Tesla over there in China. Okay, that's just flat out wrong. It's like poor taxpayers here in America are going to be subsidizing Chinese-made vehicles coming in here. So he's right to go after that. That's going to hit some themes. He's absolutely right to go after the need to cut off that electric vehicle subsidy so that we can reestablish at least some semblance of strategic energy dominance. Because, Steve, the big problem we're facing now is stagflation, which is simultaneous slow growth or recession plus inflation. And one component of that is cost push inflation. Cost push, which is created by the loss of strategic energy dominance. So far, so good. Here's the problem. He's not making the economic case. And it's for the life of me, what should come out of every Republican Congress's mouth when they say it's going to be a catastrophe if we don't get a deal on the Democrat side, we should say it's going to be a far worse economic catastrophe if you don't roll back those expenditures. Because the big thing that I'm worried about, in addition to the cost push inflation, is the demand pull inflation. What's that? That's Biden and the Democrats spending too much money, which is chasing too few goods, and we're institutionalizing inflation. So these conservatives need to step back a little bit, Steve, and understand that the bigger picture here that affects everybody across the ideological and partisan spectrum, Democrat, independent, woke to ultra-conservative, is the fact that they can't afford their food, their gasoline, their clothes, and the inflation. And that's why we've got to hold the line. That's why spending has to get cut back. I didn't hear that as the primary message. I heard, don't subsidize the rich folks buying EV. Don't let the jobs go to China. That's good.
Well, no,
but it doesn't get to the big issue.
But hang on. In his defense, he just went down. What they do is trying to break down pieces of. Yeah.
Okay.
He had that part. That's what he had the part today. But he did send out the letter, shows the interlocking. I want to go back to something, though. People,
it doesn't lead with it. He buries the lead. That's all.
Yes, I agree. I agree. On the macro side, I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with that. It's not natural to them. It's not natural to particularly Republicans to talk like this. That's why we're so good at it. I want to go to your macro course, and I want to tie it to Chip Roy in what you just saw there, the passion. One of the things we have to do, and Peter just brought this up, Dr. Navarro, it's very important. The American people now have just been bombarded and bombarded. That's why these poll numbers are so incredible. By the way, 15% of the American people said, just screw it, I'm with Trump, just default, and we'll figure it out from there because they're bluffing. That means 75% of the American people either want significant cuts before we raise it an inch or just say, hey, default. And that's pretty consistent. Three-quarters of the American people, which never agree about anything, that the sun's going to come up tomorrow in the east, agree on this, that this thing's out of control. Dr. Navarro, one of the big elements up here, and I'm telling you what they're thinking of doing. Number one, you saw with Chip Roy, they're thinking of not doing the energy part of it. They're going to have much less cuts. They're going to have just some optics on it. But I think one of the big things they're going to do is kick the can, Peter, as you've seen. They're going to kick the can down the road. And what they're going to do is put it after the inauguration date in 2025, past the 2024 election. Now, my calculation, Peter, is that will be at least a $3 to $4 trillion increase to the budget. So I just want you to put your Harvard economist hat on, since you're teaching the first course in the College of the Deplorables, the macroeconomics course. If we, as you see the economy today, and we're sitting here in May of 2023, look down range to February or March of 2025, less than 2 years away, with another, let's say, $3 to $4 trillion of deficits added to the national debt, sir. Where? And by the way, two budgets that are north of $6 trillion that have been spent. Where do you think we are, sir, economically? We're
going to be in the 1970s. Here's the thing, Steve. The stagflation of the 1970s, that was 10 years of the 70s, but it started in 1968 when Lyndon Johnson refused to trade off guns for butter, refused to trade off his spending for the Vietnam War for his Great Society programs. And that set in motion just as a series of inflationary shocks that also came from the OPEC cartel embargo, came from some food problems. And the problem is it got so institutionalized into what's called inflationary expectations. Once you get the expectation among the populace that inflation is going to be high, the only way you can get rid of it is by crushing the economy, which is what Paul Volcker did, causing a deep recession and breaking that. Now, that's what's at play here, Steve. And this course is Strategic Macroeconomics for Business Investing. It's the online course I used to teach for MBAs. It's state of the art, and I'm proud to have this on the War Room site. But here's some of the concepts you have to understand. You've got to understand the difference between demand pull and cost push inflation. Cost push inflation for this bill is restore strategic entity dominance, get rid of the cost push inflation, which affects food and energy. Demand pull inflation is Biden and Schumer and all of those folks spending way too much money, which is now chasing too few goods. The third thing you got to understand is an economic principle, and I'm not hearing any of this on the Hill, is that the Fed can only solve one problem at a time with interest rate policy. And it can solve recession by lowering interest rates and stimulating investment and consumption, or it can solve inflation by raising interest rates and constraining credit and bringing the growth rate down, which chokes. You think about it. You can't solve those problems when they're happening together. And what the Fed should be saying to the Biden regime and Janet Yellen is, hey, you're asking us to do the impossible. You got to do your part, cut the spending, come to a deal with the Republicans to cut $5 trillion over the next decade instead of kicking the can down the road and adding another $3 trillion to the problem. So, and if McCarthy and Chip Roy and Matt Gaetz and all these folks could say this is going to be a bigger economic catastrophe because it's stagflation, because the Fed can't solve this problem, only Congress can solve the problem. And by the way, this bill that Kevin McCarthy has put up is the way to solve the problem. That's where having financial and economic market literacy comes into play. That's the purpose of that course. That's what we do here on the War Room. That's what's missing from this debate, Steve. It's becoming too ideological. And in a 50-50 country with the corporate media on their side, not ours, we're going to lose that battle. And our team is going to give up. They're going to kick the can down the road, which is what you and I fear.
If you don't have it, if you give them more than 1 year, you're going to miss this entire debate for the 2024 election. We need to have this debate as a country.
Yes.
We're beginning it now. The War and Posse knows better than anybody. You're the tip of the spear. Saying the rest of your countrymen are just becoming aware of it, but you're still seeing the polls are overwhelming. When people think about it, the government can't just continue to spend and have the Federal Reserve print money. I want to go back to your math because I want to ask you something. In the 10-year projections, right? We're going to increase by at least $20 trillion new deficits that have to be borrowed. So we're $32 trillion now. The 20 gets us over $50 trillion, right? Everybody, it's congressional budget. Everybody agrees that. Even with these cuts of $5 trillion, you're still going to add 15. You're at 47 trillion. My point, unless you get serious now in period zero, that this thing just starts to metastasize. Remember, what they're talking about and what we're going to fight, and that's why we need the War and Posse on the ramparts. On the ramparts tomorrow, they just announced Kevin McCarthy's going to stay. The rest of Congress is going. Kevin McCarthy and his leadership team is going to stay. Where I was going to do a lot of reporting on that tomorrow. In fact, Dr. Peter Navarro will be hosting the 5 o'clock show. I may actually bounce in with a guest appearance, but he's going to be there to talk about the wrap up of what's happening for the week. If you don't have this national debate, like right now, we've proven that the 1st of June is not the absolute deadline. You know that, number one, just by the capital markets, and number two, there's no sense of urgency in this city. The Biden administration is not acting with any emergency. Treasury's not, besides Janet Yellen doddering out the TV like crazy Aunt Betty with her Ouija board underneath her arm, right? Because we've seen from the cash flow, the first is not the issue, and a lot of cash comes in, and there's all these questions. Why didn't they manage it? They had $120 billion of cash just a couple of weeks ago. Why didn't they manage it better? Understanding that Biden wasn't meeting with anybody. My point is that unless we start making adult decisions now, we are going to be in a position where we don't have any alternative. Because whether it's 47 trillion or 50 trillion, adding another 10 or 15 trillion, and people have to understand something. Biden just gave you a $6.8 trillion budget. He's not prepared to back off that. They may have some cosmetic savings that gets back. But basically, this government wants to spend $7 trillion, and they take in $5 trillion. Those are the rough numbers, okay? It's anywhere from $1 trillion to a $2 trillion deficit every year has to be added to the debt and has to be financed. It's simply a business model that does not work. And it only works while you're the prime reserve currency and that other people have to take your currency in order to do transactions. And Peter, you've seen that is rapidly going away from us. That's why people, go to birchgold.com/Bannon right now, get the end of the dollar empire, draw down the last chapter. These are all free. The debt trap. We walk you through how we've kind of walked into this trap. By the way, everybody's over leveraged, but the United States is in the worst position, I think, of any of them. Dr. Peter Navarro.
Steve, the most chilling scene to me in the movie Saving Private Ryan was when the Nazi guy with the bayonet traps the American soldier beneath him and just slowly sticks that bayonet in and kills him. And that's exactly what Biden and the Democrats did to the Republican Party when they passed all of these massive spending bills. It wasn't a compromise. It was a bayonet through the heart. I want to know why the Republican House should compromise on something that is the essence of reasonableness. And even if we do that, it's still not enough. That's where I start here, Steve. And God bless Russ Vought, because he came up with the idea, rolling back. That's where you start. You roll back and then you go. And you allow them to expand by 1% a year and force the tough choices that this government has not been making. This is brilliant. And that cannot be abandoned by Kevin McCarthy or Chip Roy or anybody in between. And it will be unless they argue the case better, Steve. It's got to be argued on sound economics, not just ideology, where the middle and left will get their backs up. Hey, we need green energy. No. You argue it on the economics of it first.
I want to connect some dots here before you go, because you had a great analysis of G7. A couple things people should understand. Microsoft is telling us, and this is what I've been saying about when I talk about home title lock, and everybody in this audience is an enemy combatant in this great tragedy that we're going through, or this great drama, I should say. You're actively part of this. And this is why I keep saying you've got to start taking things off your plate that expose you. The cyber war of the Third World War has already started. Two elements, Peter, and I want your comments about the surrender of the G7 that nobody's talking about except for you.
Yeah.
We now know that the Chinese Communist Party, the PLA, or the PLA's Navy, has run a major simulation exercise where they actually end up taking out a carrier battle group in the battle for the South China Sea in the Straits of Taiwan. Jack Posobiec and I on Saturday are going to talk more about this, but this should shock people that they actually think now they have the kinetic ability to take out a carrier battle group. Number two, Microsoft reports today that the Chinese Communist Party, and they're saying their hackers are actually taking down the communication infrastructure between Guam, really our most forward base now that we're out of the Philippines, Guam, that great naval station there and air base, critical communication back to the United States, with a series of cyber attacks. Talk to me about G7. Biden went over there. What message did we send to Xi and the Chinese Communist Party about the comportment of the participants in the G7 towards the Chinese Communist Party, sir?
Let me start by, in 2015, my Crouching Tiger book, I wrote about how the Chinese Communist Party calls U.S. aircraft carriers targets. And it's a piece of cake to knock out our carriers in the South China Sea, because it's asymmetric warfare. You can send 1,000 missiles at a multi-billion-dollar carrier and spend just millions of dollars doing it. It's like now they got hypersonics. The G7 was supposed to be at the top of its queue, a coordinated, solid response from the G7 countries on the Chinese military and economic aggression. What happened? Well, first of all that got crowded out by debt ceiling stuff with Biden, and also by all the discussions about Ukraine and having Zelensky come in, and they came out of that with just the most wishy-washy statement. Let me just push the Substack for just 1 second. PeterNavarro.substack.com. PeterNavarro.substack.com. I'm breaking news every week on that with articles. When that Substack ran, the Epoch Times picked it up and ran it. And what it explains is the fundamental underlying problem. It's a Tolstoy quote I love. It's like, unhappy families are not alike in different ways, right? And so what you have is you've got Germany has communist China as its largest trading partner. You got Italy. That's the two Axis powers, just by the way. Italy is being bought up, the hook, line, and sinker by the Chinese communists. They're buying Italian firms left and right. They're already gone. They're already CCP puppets, and they're into the debt financing. They're getting the ports in Genoa and Trieste, right? France and Canada, it's not just overdependence on Chinese communist trade. It's those two Frenchophiles there, Trudeau and Macron, love to play the United States against communist China as a way of bolstering their stature in the world. And that's what Macron did when he threw Taiwan onto the bus, when he parted with European ways. And Trudeau was doing that back in the Trump era, coming out of the last G7 when he trashed Trump just as Air Force One was leaving the airspace. The only true blue China hawk in that group is Japan, because they're at the tip of the military and economic sphere. The communists are sending aircraft into their air defense zone. They're sending ships around the Senkaku Islands, which they falsely claim. And we got squat. They promised us stable. Their goal, Steve, I blow my mind. They want a stable relationship with China. What? Are you kidding me? And Biden, it's like he goes back to the rhetoric of it's a competition. It's not a conflict. It's like, geez, and by the way, as part of that, at the same time they're going to the G7, it's like Biden's calling this a silly balloon, as if it wasn't like one of the worst spy capers in American history. And they're just they came away with nothing. Predictably, there's just no unity against the Chinese Communist Party economic hegemony. And now, wow, you get this report from Microsoft. It's like the 100th report in the last year.
Hang on.
That says hackers going in and screwing. Yeah, I mean, it's the
cyber,
like,
the cyber war has already started. Hang on for Peter. Just hang on quick to the break. I want to wrap up, make sure everybody can get to your contents. To short commercial break, Dr. Peter Navarro is with us, talking geopolitics, the debt ceiling, our currency, how it all links together. That's why this fight right now, 202-225-3121. Make sure you're a member of the House. Here's what you have to say about holding the line. Short commercial break, back in a moment.
Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Peter Navarro, can you give your coordinates? I want everybody to get a shot at taking your macro course. I think it's $10 or $12. I want everybody to make sure they go to your Substack. You're putting editorials now up in the Washington Times. You got a lot of great stuff going on. And now I've just gotten, in our break, I'm getting a lot of messages from people up on the Hill that the War Room Posse is having a huge influence. We think we may have stopped him from taking the first off-ramp. Remember, look, I didn't say it was going to be easy. You got to be on these people all the time because the cartel always wants to cut the uniparty deal. You know this, Peter. You've seen it so many times. They always want to cut the uniparty deal. That's why we've got to man the ramparts. I know it's not easy, particularly going to Memorial Day weekend, but we got to do it. Peter, how do they get to your content?
Here's your cold open for tomorrow morning. Just a suggestion. Saving Private Ryan clip where the Nazi kills the American soldier. That's what the Democrats did to the Republicans when they had their majority. They didn't negotiate. So why do they expect us to negotiate with them now, especially when we are absolutely right on this? Steve, I do need the help from the posse. PeterNavarro.substack.com, PeterNavarro.substack.com. What I do there are short 5-minute reads, 8-minute podcast audios that basically are like the Mike Tyson jab. War Room does the long form for 4 hours. They do it beautifully. I do the short thing if you kind of get in and out. PeterNavarro.substack.com. But just this week, I had a beautiful piece that went into the Washington Times. I love that. Kelly Sadler does a beautiful job there as one of the editors. And another piece on the G7, Epic Times published it. And you know this, Steve. We're canceled. I used to write for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and all that. They don't want to hear the truth, sir. So War Room Posse, PeterNavarro.substack.com. You get it here first. We break stuff on the War Room and go for the macro course that's going to be up on the website. And I'll get another coupon up there working with Mo and Cameron that'll get you a little discount, and it's all good, Steve. I love your idea where maybe some of these congressmen and their staffers will take the course so they can talk about Federal Reserve policy.
No, we got to get people more up to speed on this. The audience itself has been absolutely incredible doing this. Peter, Dr. Navarro, we'll see you here tomorrow night. Looking forward to it, brother.
You're doing a heck of a job, brother. We got David Bernhardt as a great guest tomorrow at 5:00 on the War Room. He's amazing. This guy's amazing.
Hold it. Take a second. Can you go to the backpack there and pull the book off that's just sitting there? I got to take 2 seconds and do this.
No,
I don't know how this works.
Yeah.
I'm a good. Hold it. No, stop. No. I'm very. The audience got to understand. As people know, I'm a voracious reader. I went and bought this book and read it because I heard it was about the administrative state. In fact, it's got it here in the title. I think the first book from a Trump guy that says administrative state. So I get the book and I read it. It's amazing. And then I look, and the publisher is a friend of mine. Encounter Books. It's the great Roger Kimball, who we have on a lot, one of the top intellectuals. He runs New Criterion. And I call him. I said, I got to get this guy on. What is your publicist doing? And we had the great guy Biohack, which is about how the CCP is not just doing bioweapons program. They're doing in the Made in China 2025. They're trying to control all of human life, right? You got AI, you got human life. That guy's, I still can't get this guy on. And Navarro says, hey, because he's going to be sitting in the host chair. I'm going to be on by Skype tomorrow for a little while. He goes, yeah, I got this great guy, David Bernhardt. I go, what are you talking about? I've been trying to book this guy for weeks. I can't find him. And the publisher hasn't helped me at all. So it's amazing. He's one of the great Trump appointees.
One of my expression in Trump time, which is to say as soon as possible, that was like my signature in the White House. You want something done, you go call Navarro, he gets it done. Well, when I describe in Trump time, I use Bernhardt as the poster child for that, because when I found out that the Interior Department were flying Chinese drones over our lands and taking pictures, I called David up. Yes. He's the secretary, right? I said, what's going on here? He had those things pulled in 8 hours, sir. That's in Trump time, baby.
This is, okay. When President Trump says the deep state of the administrative state is the enemy, and we talk about the 4,000 people we're training up to get ready to hit the beaches on January 20th of 2025, people in the audience, War and Posse understands, there are so many great professionals that are working every day to do this. Is one of the reasons the left. Why do you think Trump's going to get 9 more indictments today? I was in New York for 6 minutes this morning so they could tell me, oh, your trial's going to be right after President Trump, then you. They're going to use lawfare like crazy. Guy poor Navarro chained up like a dog. He's going to go to prison for I don't know what. They're going to think of something. No, my point is they can't stop us. What they fear, and this is why Bernhardt's book's important, they understand we know the administrative state and how it works. And President Trump is bound and determined to take it apart. And this is why, David, I'm really glad David's on tomorrow, because when Navarro says, hey, we had a problem, this is Trump. When we had a problem, Chinese drones over American land taking photos so they could go buy, for intelligence, cyber warfare, and to go buy it cheap later. To get the administrative state to do anything in 8 hours is impossible. That shows you what I call human agency. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
Might have been my best day in the White House as days go there. And
we'll talk about that tomorrow.
It's at 5 o'clock the show. He's a great dude, and I'm going to let Bannon Skype.
No, I'm going to let Skype in and finally meet the guy. I knew about him. He's kind of legendary in the thing. Yeah. Peter, thank you very much.
If you ask me nice, I'll let him come into the studio next week. Sit with you.
I'll get a second bite of the apple. Thank you, sir.
You're killing it,
I love
baby.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So Russ Vogt just got me. Let's have a chat here with the most important. The reason the show is important is because of the audience. The reason the audience is important is because it's an activist audience. Even if you're not with any group, you take action. You make phone calls. You go to the website. You're a force multiplier. People know that. That's why people, die. And the great team here, we curate people coming on the war room every day, and we got to juggle it. And that's we can only, certain stories we get to signal. This is kind of everything right now because this is the reason we fought, got the majority. We told you it was the appropriations process, not to pass these omnibus. You got to get your control. You got to get your hand on the money. You got to get your hand on the ability to control the money. We're right in that fight right now. Russ Vogt tells me that your phone calls today have made a big difference. Right now, they're talking about, well, we're still far apart. McCarthy's announced he's going to stay. But they were looking forward to actually announcing a deal today. And that deal would be, once again, what the controlled opposition Republican Party always happens to them. They get scared by the media. They get intimidated. Oh, there's going to be a default. There's going to be a default. Do we have the chart up there about that with the money? There's going to be a default. What have we told you on this show now for months? She's lying to you. There's no default that's coming on the 1st of June. There's no default that's coming on the 1st of June. Okay, it's not going to happen. And they've got a chart. Let's bring this chart up here. So it gets tight. I didn't say it doesn't get tight. All this stuff about Social Security running out. Social Security is in a different pot, a different pool, and they've also got some securities that they can monetize. They keep in there. So Social Security is going to be fine. They're going to start really getting on you that, oh, the Social Security checks are not going to go out. That's just not true. But look at this right here. If you see this chart, if you, on our podcast, that's where you got to go to warroom.org. Make sure you sign up for the newsletters. Totally free. Make sure you know, we don't have paywalls here. We don't have any of that. We're trying to be ubiquitous and get it out to people. Now, we appreciate the fact that you support our sponsors. That's very important. And we try to curate the sponsors so it's only information you need and things that make you more self-reliant. But if you look at it, so go to warroom.org, get the morning newsletter, give us your email. Also, Grace Chung has done an incredible job. All the information about your representatives and everybody else is up there. You can get that free now if you just go and give us the email and get on our but put this thing back up. I don't need to see my smiling face again. Put my chart back up there. Okay, there we go. Thanks. So make sure you go get it and you get all the charts. For people who listen on radio and for people who listen to the podcast, and that's a lot of our audience, you don't get the benefit of the live TV or streaming audience or even people go on Rumble later and check it out. Now, this chart shows we had $120 billion not too long ago. Once again, Janet Yellen, complete mismanagement. Now it's going to get down. The lowest it gets is $2 billion of cash on the 9th of June. Well, that's the 9th. And then once you get to the 15th, cash starts kicking back in. But this is no formal presentation. What she should do is be subpoenaed or invited to come before a committee right now and make a presentation and tell us exactly what's going on. I want to see the cash in, and I want to see the obligations you have out. If you've got to stretch Raytheon on a contract, on one of their multi-billion-dollar contracts, you got to stretch them 5 days. Hey, baby, stretch them. We're just not going to crater to a deal that's going to have a massive implication going forward, because here's what they're trying to do. The cartel is trying to do the oldest trick in the book. How many times you sat through this one? Just going to kick. This is what Mitch McConnell did last time on the debt ceiling. You want to kick the debt ceiling past the election. That's why they kicked it. Remember, they just kicked the debt ceiling past the 22 midterm. Why? You saw that impassioned speech by Chip Roy, and I do disagree with Peter. I thought it was a magnificent speech for what that aspect he was taking. He only had 5 minutes when you go down there to have a magnificent speech. Can you imagine the 2024 general election where we start in May after the primaries are over and we actually have another debt ceiling debate, right? Look, I don't love the deal that's on the table, but obviously the deal that's on the table is making them quake. The biggest thing is making them quake of everything else, not just the cuts and the work requirements and all that. One of the things making them quake is you're going to put the debt ceiling right in the middle of a presidential election. And we're going to be at $33.5 or $34 trillion. What they're asking for is give us another $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion and kick it into February or March after the inauguration, after the next cycle. We're not going to do that. You cannot do that. What Russ Vogt and everybody are telling me is that your phone calls are, because they understand activists throughout the nation, and this is everybody, the precinct strategy folks, the monster, everybody of all the groups we have on here, all the groups. And if you're a local party, you're a local party at the precinct strategy or whatever, on your Facebook, everything, get people fired up on this. Get to the ramparts right now, because this is your moment. This is your moment to block a deal before it gets done. And already they said, McHenry came out and said, well, we're still far apart and no deal. They've sent everybody home. Kevin McCarthy's just announced that he's going to stick around to try to get something done. What we need to do is to keep the pressure on, Only the pressure works here. 202-225-3121. Also, go to War Room, our site, or if Grace and Mo can put it up in the Chiron. Make sure you're a co-signer if you agree. We never want to tell you what to do. We're trying to give you access. Go to MTG's site. See if you want to be a co-signer on the impeachment documents. By the way, very bizarre story coming out of Texas. We'll follow up tomorrow. There's some panel there in the House. It looks like they want to move to impeach Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. We'll get more into that tomorrow. It just popped across our radar here. There's so many things right now that you're signing up for. Your phone calls, your emails is having a big impact. We must hold the line. We must hold the line and to enforce Janet Yellen to show us the work. Let's see exactly what you're talking about. There is no crisis. Yes, there's a slight air pocket. That air pocket is brought up by their incompetence. she didn't manage the cash. Why? To put the gun to your head. Let's go ahead and play. I want to play. This is what they think you. This is what the Democrats, this is what the Democratic Party thinks of you, and try to bring order into the House so that we don't get the $50 trillion. Can I go ahead and play that cut?
Everybody's trying to do a fine job of figuring out the finer details of this, but nothing's done, and we're at a sensitive phase.
Negotiations between the House Republican leaders and the White House are still happening at this hour. They still need to get a deal. They still need to sell it to the broader House and Senate conferences and caucuses on each side of the aisle and get that through the parliamentary process, which can take many days, and get that all done potentially as soon as June 1st to avoid that debt default. But getting it done by then seems very unlikely at this point. This comes all as we're hearing mounting frustration from a number of members, particularly Democrats, who have been shut out of these negotiations on Capitol Hill and are concerned that the White House is giving up too much to the House GOP.
I'm very frustrated. I called on the president to invoke the 14th Amendment and mint a coin and do not negotiate with hostage takers. I mean, we don't negotiate with terrorists globally. Why are we going to negotiate with the economic terrorists here that are the Republican Party?
I think the greatest regret that we should have was the failure.
Stop. They wanted to do it last time. You see right there? That is the geniuses they want making financial decisions in the country. He wants a 14th Amendment, which is absolutely absurd. We know that. Or he wants to print a commemorative coin and call it $1 trillion. They're not serious, and they call you economic terrorists. Your representatives, the people you've been calling, you're economic terrorists. Just embrace that. You're economic terrorists. You who are trying to have some sort of fiscal sanity, some discernment. We have to make tough choices here. We can't continue to spend it. The other side is not rational on this. We should not be negotiating. There's nothing to negotiate. Either accept the deal as it is, or screw yourself. Just suck on it. Because I can get in there and show you can manage the cash. You're never going to default. You're never going to default. Fitch, by the way, these people are watching the show. They come, Bannon's wrong. It's just not on government securities. If you're a late payment on anything, that's just not true. Nobody cares about Fitch. Nobody cares about you, and you're making up. No, a default is on a government security, and that will never happen. And look how they've managed the cash. And what do they think? They think you're an economic terrorist. This is what they come back. You're an economic terrorist. We should just go to the 14th Amendment, or we should just print a commemorative coin and call it $1 trillion. These are not serious people. This is the reason the country's in this situation. This is why we have to hold the line. There should not be an off-ramp. Have them pass something in the Senate. Let's go. People saying, Dave, well, Steve, they're going to have something the Senate's going to be turned, not going to eat cuts. Dare them. Let me see it. Do it. We got our bill. We don't love it, but we back it right now. Number one of the most important things, whatever happens next March, you're right back here in the middle of a presidential election. They don't want that. Neither party, the unit party, doesn't want that. They don't want any of that. 202-225-3121. I already know from Russ, you're having a massive impact. We're going to be back here tomorrow morning. We're going to get into it in the same way. It's going to be quite intense. So I'm sure everybody's going to warroom.org. Go check it out. Grace has got the ability. You get on our email list to get the morning newsletter with all types of exclusive content, totally free. You get this whole new package that Grace has put together that you can just sit there right in front of you. You can just start working the phones and banging calls these people and get right up in their grill. So this is going to be quite intense. By the way, a lot of special programming. We're going to have Pasobik on, I think, tomorrow morning. Jack's got a new show on Real America's Voice. You're going to have War Room 10 to noon, Charlie Kirk noon to 2, and then the third hour you're going to have Jack Pasobik. His show is moving to 2 in the afternoon. So you're going to have 5 solid hours of populist nationalism right in the middle of the day, right? So where we love it. We love being in the workday. We think it's the best television. So Jack Pasobik's going to be on. We're also going to be all over this. A lot going on. If I can get, I think I got my buddy Crom Carmichael. Hey, Crom, we got people on the ramparts. They are with hearts of lions. They got to take care of their hearts. How do they get to Salty? First off, why should they buy? Give me a minute on that, and then how do they get it, sir?
Steve, thanks so much for having me. And I tell you, listening to Peter Navarro and listening to you, it has gotten my heart rate going up. And I would encourage every member of the posse to start taking Soul Tea. I just had my annual physical, and once again, my cholesterol is in great shape. My blood pressure is 115/80, and I attribute a lot of my good health, and especially my cardiovascular system, to Soul Tea. Soul Tea is a all-natural super extract from green tea, a particular molecule called theaflavin, and we have a proprietary extraction process where we take theaflavin, that molecule which resides in fresh green tea at 1%, and we're able to take it all the way up to 22.5%, and we then take that raw material and we put it in these soft gels, and 2 soft gels a day will help you manage your cholesterol. If you have moderately high cholesterol, it may bring it down, and it'll help your cardiovascular system. The way to get Soul Tea is to go to warroomhealth.com. That's warroomhealth.com, and then use the code WARROOM at checkout, and that'll get you 50% off of your initial shipment. And then the subsequent shipments, you get 3 bottles for the price of 2, and we pay the freight all the time. We make it simple, we make it easy, and it'll really help your cardiovascular system.
Crom, thank you very much. Great to have you back on here. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll look forward to having you back on next week, brother. Thank you. Crom
Thank you very much.
Soul Tea. You've got a heart of a lion. Make sure you take care of it. Breaking news, as we're going to be back here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Breaking news, Reuters. Elon Musk Neuralink gets U.S. FDA approval for human clinical study of, wait for it, brain implants. Hey, DeSantis, I'd like to know your position on transhumanism since you launched on the leading transhumanist in the country. Remember, he said his company was already the most advanced artificial intelligence company. Just saying, hate to say once again, the war room's ahead of it and accurate. I wouldn't trust this guy as far as I would throw him. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. We're going to get back in and maybe even get Joe Allen off his special project, come here and comment on this. Back in the morning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Make sure you're here. Debt ceiling, man the ramparts, hold the line.